السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيده. اللهم لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك، وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا محمد عدد ما ذكره الذاكرون وغفل عن ذكره الغافلون. Welcome to Meme TV, presenting everyone with a event in regards to the mother of Jesus, Maryam alayhi salam, with our esteemed guest. Inshallah, we will introduce him very shortly. The subject in hand we have today is Maryam alayhi salam, the mother of Jesus alayhi salam, inshallah. And this session, this event will be a question and answer based event, inshallah, where I will ask, as your host, I will ask questions to our honorable speaker, inshallah, and we will listen to him, his wisdom in his answers, and learn from the life of Maryam alayhi salam, inshallah. So without a further ado, inshallah, we would like to ask our Maulana, our Shaykh, to introduce himself, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi wahdah wa salatu wa salamu ala man la nabiyya ba'da wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. As always, I would like to first of all start by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is our creator, who is our sustainer, and who has given us countless ni'ams, countless favors upon us he has done. And the greatest of those favors is that he has blessed us with the kalima La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And also I would like to start with sending peace and salutations on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's beloved and who we love the most after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is the final messenger, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I will just introduce myself briefly, as Maulana you have asked me to do. But before I do that, I would just first of all like to say Jazakallah and thank you to yourself and also to the organizers of this program for inviting me to say a few words today. To call people towards the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one of the greatest favors that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can bestow upon a person. And for you to grant me this opportunity where I can speak about aspect of our deen, a very important aspect of our deen, and about one of the greatest women to ever set foot on the face of this earth is a privilege, it is an honor, and it is something that I am grateful to you for, and also I am grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also for as well. So just a very brief introduction of myself is that I was born in Yorkshire, and just like everybody else, I went to normal school. And then when I was about 12 years old, I wanted to take my Islamic studies more seriously. So I joined the madrasa and I started memorizing the Quran. It took me about 4 years to memorize the Quran, and I completed memorization of the Quran. And then after that, I started the Alimiya course, and I graduated from South Africa in 2002. And after that, I have worked as an Imam in various masajids. First of all, I was Imam of the Swindon Masjid. I also worked as an Imam in Scotland as well. But for the last 13 years, I have been Imam of the Masjid in Worthing. Worthing is a town in West Sussex. It's about 10 miles from Brighton. And I have been the Imam here since 2007. But also, as well as the Imam and leading the Salah here and doing khidmah in this masjid, also I teach, I'm the head teacher of our maktab in the masjid, which has over 100 children. And also I work as chaplain in the prison service, also in the hospital. And also I try and do whatever I can with other local services as well. For example, the local college, universities, and other public services, council, etc. And try and do whatever I can. So you can say I am a jack of all trades. Believe me, I am not a master of any of them. But I try and do whatever I can for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with that intention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts it from us and also knowing my limited ability, both in terms of my knowledge and also in terms of my adherence to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that's it, we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts whatever little we do. One of our teachers, he used to say that, when they weigh the oranges, you have the A class A and the best classes of oranges. But even those which are rotten oranges, they also get weighed as well, They also, unka bhi wazan ho jata hai, So it's just like that, we're thinking, with these great, mashallah, illustrious people like yourselves and others, mashallah. So also, somebody like me also, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also accept me with this barakah of others as well, inshallah. So that's just a brief introduction of myself.
Ameen, ameen. Jazakumullah khair, Shaykh. Right, this event, mashallah, was organized by Imam Islamic TV. Alhamdulillah, we are doing a lot of good work. I think there's weekly programs going on. So inshallah, do tune in and share this program, inshallah. Also, alhamdulillah, we thank Allah for allowing us to attend this gathering. For when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows anyone or someone to attend such gathering, it is only for one reason, that he wants good for us. As there was a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, Man yuridullahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fi din. It's in Rawahu Muslim wa Bukhari kadhalik. Right? So it's mentioned in, mashallah, very sahih, very, very authentic hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ is saying that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good upon someone, he gives them knowledge or comprehension of the deen. And this is a part of this. This, by us gathering and attending these gatherings, alhamdulillah, we're making this hadith a reality, inshallah. So inshallah, do tune in and share it, especially with our sisters, our daughters, our mothers. It is about Maryam alayhi salam, one of the greatest female servant of Allah to come to this world. And these people are role models. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions these characters, such characters, in the Quran several times, to take lessons from how they were, what they did. Allah mentions Maryam alayhi salam many times. I think she is the only female to be mentioned in the Quran, and that states something for sure. So before moving on to the questions, I'd urge everyone to start sharing with their family, especially their sisters. And this topic in hand that we have is very relevant for the time we are living in right now. And so share it as much as you can, inshallah. So, Shaykh, shall we start moving on to the questions?
Yeah, please do.
Bismillah. If you want to just give us a little introduction about who was Maryam alayhi salam, who she was, why she was mentioned in the Quran, and then we'll go to the specifics, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
MashaAllah. So, as I think you already mentioned, that Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha has one very special honor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted towards her and has granted her, which is that she is the only female which is mentioned in the Quran. And not only is she the only female which is mentioned in the Quran, but as well as that, a whole surah is named after her as well. And she is one of the greatest women to ever step foot on the face of this earth. There is a hadith in Bukhari Sharif in which it has been mentioned by Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So as you said, Bukhari, Muslim, these are the most sahih and authentic hadith that you can find. That Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that while many men have attained spiritual perfection, from women only Sayyida Asiya radiallahu ta'ala anha, who was the wife of Fir'aun, and Sayyida Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha, who was the daughter of Imran and the mother of Isa alayhi salam. These two are the only women who have attained perfection. And this is a Sahih hadith in Bukhari Sharif. In Musnad Ahmad, there is a hadith that the best of all the women of Jannah, from all the women who will go into Jannah, the best are four. And the Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned who the four are. He said the first is Khadija bint Khuwaylid, the first wife of Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam from the Azwaj al-Mutahharat. And second was the daughter of Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Fatima bint Muhammad. The third is Auntie Asiya bint Mujahid, the wife of Fir'aun. And fourthly, Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned it is Maryam bint Imran, Maryam, the daughter of Imran. Now, Hazrat Aisha, Hazrat Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha, she has been mentioned in the Quran, as I said, and she has been mentioned in the Quran in many different ways. So one sometimes misunderstanding that we have as Muslims is that her name has only been mentioned because she was the mother of Isa alayhi salam. And if she was not the mother of Isa alayhi salam, her name would not have been mentioned because Isa alayhi salam did not have a father. Therefore, Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha, her name was mentioned. But actually, if we look deeper in the Quran, we find evidence contrary to this, because her name has been mentioned not only as the mother of Isa alayhi salam, but also as the daughter of Imran as well. So the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done this and mentioned, especially if we look at, for example, Surah Tahrim, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, because we know that in our deen, every single person is an individual. And sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives examples in the Quran. Because sometimes what happens, especially in this day and age, that you find that a father, for example, he doesn't ever miss tahajjud as well. And you find the child is not even ready to come to Jumu'ah. So, sometimes we feel this depression that, how can it be that I am going to the masjid, I am practicing so much, and my son or my daughter is not doing anything. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives various examples in the Quran that every single person is an individual. Sometimes the father is practicing, the son is not. For example, Nuh alayhi salam. Sometimes son is practicing, father isn't. For example, Ibrahim alayhi salam. And you find this husband is practicing, the wife isn't, like Lut alayhi salam. Wife is practicing, husband isn't, like Fir'aun's wife, Asiya. So you find these kind of examples again and again in the Quran. So into Surah Tahrim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions these examples as well. He mentions the wife of Fir'aun. He also mentions the wife of Lut alayhi salam and Nuh alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions them. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, right at the end, the last ayah of Surah Tahrim, He mentions Maryam bint Imran. So here the scholars have mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned her by name, not as the mother of Isa alayhi salam, but as the wife, as the daughter of Imran radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does this is to impress upon us that Maryam's virtues, her status is not only because she was the mother of Isa alayhi salam, but it is because she in her own right had those qualities, had that devotion, and had that modesty, and had that obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that she is a role model for both men and women until the day of Qiyamah. That is why even at the end of the ayah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in that ayah, وَكَانَتْ مِنَ الْقَانِتِينَ, and the word qanitin is mentioned in a masculine sense. So the scholars have pondered on this, they have researched on this. The reason why they mention that it is a muzakkar sega, it is a masculine sega, is that not only is she a role model for men, but for women, but she is a role model also for men as well. And also as well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned her birth. Now I don't want to go into a lot of detail because some of this I'm sure was mentioned last week as well, when Hazrat Isa alayhi salam was mentioned in quite a lot of detail. But her birth is mentioned, that her mother, Hannah, radiallahu ta'ala anha, she was expecting a baby. And while during this time, her husband passed away, Imran. And then thereafter, she made a pledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, vow to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that this child that is born, it will be free of any worldly matters, and it will be solely for your pleasure and for your worship. And she was expecting that it will be a son that will be born, and the son will then do khidmah of Masjid al-Aqsa and do the khidmah of deen. But a daughter was born, and she was astonished, and she said that, how can a daughter do that what a son can do? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows better who you have given birth to. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that she was given the name Maryam by her mother, and also her mother made dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect her from shaitan and protect also her offspring from shaitan as well. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted this dua. And the first quality of Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha, which is mentioned in the Quran, is her ibadah. That she used to have a room which was set aside for her by Zakaria alayhi salam. And she would spend all the day in that room. At night time she would go home, but all throughout the day she would spend her time in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And she would worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so much that fruits out of season she would receive from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Zakaria alayhi salam saw this, and as we know, he asked, where do these fruits come from? She said they come from Allah. And then he also made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that in my old age give me a son. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted that dua and gave him Yahya alayhi salam. So that is the ibadat is mentioned in the Quran. And also as well Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states that وَإِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَاكِ وَطَهَّرَكِ وَاصْطَفَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. That remember when the angel said that, O Maryam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen you for special status, وَطَهَّرَكِ, and purified you from all sins and polytheism and all kinds of evil, وَاصْطَفَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ, and has chosen you over all of the women of the world. Now the scholars have mentioned what is meant over here is that all the women of that time that used to live, Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha had a special status over all of them. But obviously in terms of the whole of humanity, our Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, our belief is that Fatima, she is the Sayyidatul Nisa'i Ahlul Jannah, that she is the leader of all the women who will go into Jannah, from all of the women that have ever come, especially at that time. And amongst humanity, in terms of the top 3 or 4 women that have ever come, who are the most noble, the most godly, the most pious that have come, Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha was one of them. And also one final other place as well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to her as Ummuhu Siddiqa. About Hazrat Isa Islam, he says that his mother, she was a Siddiqa. Now, Siddiqa and Siddiq, this is the highest position you can get after Nubuwwat, because Nubuwwat is the highest position, and nobody can earn that. That is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows upon whom He wants. But after Nubuwwat, the greatest status a person can have is that of Siddiq or Siddiqa. That is why we say Hazrat Abu Bakr, he is Siddiq. A lot of people have that misconception as well. They believe that he is called Siddiq. Why? Because at the time of Mi'raj, when people doubted what had happened and doubted what Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was reporting, he emphasized his belief in that. And he said, look, we believe that he gets messages from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this journey of Mi'raj is easy for us to believe. Yes, this happened as well. But that is not the reason why Hazrat Abu Bakr is called Siddiq. Hazrat Abu Bakr is called Siddiq because what is mentioned in the Quran, أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ. After Nabiyyin, it is the position of Siddiqeen. And Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he has the highest position after the Anbiya. That is why he is from the Siddiqeen. And regarding Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha, it is also mentioned that she is Siddiqa. So that also mentions that the high status she has in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So both if we study the Quran, if we study the Hadith, we will understand that this was a very, very special woman who was very devout, who was very obedient, who was very worshipping, and she was somebody who has a very special status in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Subhanallah, mashallah, jazakumullah khair. A lot of information. She was regarded as, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favored her upon so many other Muslim women individuals. Subhanallah. Another aspect, one of the main aspect of a woman, this is moving on to the second part, and one of the main aspect of a woman is her modesty. And this is what we want to focus on, and this is why we have chosen the life of Maryam alayhi salam, inshallah. So in regards to modesty, we see nowadays how our children are, our young females are, and how they are, who their models, role models are, who they look up to, how they dress. Everything has a sense of modesty. And this is what we want to discuss. Every single person should have a role model. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to show us how, right? And so for the females as well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent so many female individuals throughout from Adam alayhi salam all the way till the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to even till now. We have awliya, female awliyas as well, and their life is a example for us. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever He sent the book, any book, the four big books, He would also send a prophet, right? So you have to, that's why these females have been shown their life in the Quran, subhanallah. So going towards modesty, the first question, Shaykh, would be about how important is modesty for females, definitely, and of course even for males as well. So as modesty as a whole, how important is it for us?
See, one thing that we have to always remember is that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the most complete and most beautiful example for each and every single one of us. And we have to look at the characteristics and of the qualities that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam had, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke about, and then Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, through the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, managed to bring these qualities into the Sahaba, into the companions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. So where we have lots and lots of qualities, for example, we have taqwa, and we have shukr, and we have humbleness and tawadu, and all of these. One very, very important quality that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam has spoken of, and that we find in the life of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is something called haya. And haya loosely is translated as modesty in Islam. And that is what we are speaking about today. Because in hadith, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, that you have been created with the most beautiful and the best and greatest character. In one hadith it is mentioned that Nabi Kareem sallallahu stated that بُعِثْتُ لِأُتِمَّ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. The reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent me is that I can complete and perfect the akhlaq, and perfect the good character and the noble character that a person should have. So this was one of the reasons why Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent into this world. One of the reasons of prophethood. That is why it's mentioned in the Quran as well. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابُ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. So in this as well, the ulama have mentioned that this is all about character. Because sadly, unfortunately, as you mentioned, that nowadays character is something that we don't recognize ourselves by character. If I think, who am I? We think I am how I look. I am how other people see me. What is my image? And then people, you see what they have is they have, for example, especially nowadays on Facebook, on social media, on WhatsApp, they want to have that perfect selfie and they want to put it on and they think that's who I am. However I look on there, however people perceive me, that's how I am. But that is a trick of shaitan, because that's not who we really are. That is how other people see us. What we really are like is what our character is like. And that is what we will be judged upon in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So each and every single person must try to perfect their character. And haya and modesty, this is something that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam has emphasized, and also it is something which is emphasized in the Quran as well. And one mistake I think we can make over here is usually when we talk about haya, we think this is just for women. We think haya is for women, haya is something that women should have. This is the big mistake that we make. Haya is something that men and women both should have. So what is actually haya? So linguistically, the meaning of haya is restraining oneself of something and abandoning it out of fear or rebuke. So like for example in Urdu, as we said that mujhe sharam aati hai, or you should be ashamed to do this. Sharam aani chahiye. So that is actually the linguistic meaning of haya. The linguistic meaning of haya is that inside us, and this is not only in Muslims, but in every single human being, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed something because of which, and it's something which is natural, intrinsic, that because of which a person fears that, look, I don't want people to find this out about me. So that is the first type of haya. This is the haya that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted to everybody naturally. But sadly, unfortunately, because of the the environment that we live in, when children go to school, when children live in the environment and they grow up in this environment where there is only fahsha, there is only shamelessness, then what happens is that people lose this haya. But this is something haya, what we call tabi'i, a natural haya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to everybody. But then there is also haya imani as well. Haya imani means that modesty which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which comes because of the fear of Allah. That a person does not want to do anything because of which that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take him to account and ask him about what he is doing. So this is the essence of haya. That as far as Islamic terminology is concerned, modesty means to behave at all times with respect and shame and refrain from sin, whether in secret or in public. So a person thinks, how can I do this? How can I do this when I don't want other people to see me doing this? I don't want my Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to see me in this condition. And this is something, especially in the environment that we are living in today, and the shameless environment and the corrupt environment, the lewd and the absolutely corrupt environment that we live in. It is a quality which is very, very important, and only through modesty will a person be able to save themselves from sin. Just one hadith I will mention as well. I'm sure, inshallah, I will be able to mention some more other Quran ayahs and hadith as well about the modesty. But in one hadith, it comes that Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned that there are 70 branches of Iman. And then he mentioned that the best of the branches is La ilaha illallah. To say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, this is the best branch. And then Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned that the least of the branches, least of the aspect of Islam, is to move something which is giving problems to somebody from the road, and to move which is something which is an obstacle, move it from the road. And then what did Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mention? He said, Al-haya'u shu'batun min al-iman. So he mentioned the first one out of the 70. He mentioned the least one out of the 70. That means he had another 68 to choose from. And from that 68, he mentioned haya. Why? Because if a person has haya, if a person has that sharam, if a person has that, I don't want to, how can I do this, or how can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala see me in this condition, then inshallah the whole of deen will be easy for him to follow. That is why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, Al-haya'u shu'batun min al-iman.
Jazakumullah khair. Subhanallah. This characteristic of haya, it has an effect on all the other characteristics that someone can have. Can't you know, Shaykh Sab?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it comes in also another hadith as well, that Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned that إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. That when you lose haya, then do whatever you want. Which means what? This is not a permission from Allah, from Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but what it is that it is a threat. That haya is something that you should hold on to, and in all circumstances. And once you lose haya, then for a person to do anything will be easy, and there is no end to what a person can do. Also as well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions haya in the Quran as well. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions haya in a few different places. But especially, for example, Allah ta'ala states that إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَحِي أَن يَضْرِبَ مَثَلًا مَا بَعُوضَةً فَمَا فَوْقَهَا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not shy to give certain examples. Also as well, when some Sahaba used to come, Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, to Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's house to eat, and then they used to overstay. Even there as well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam does not say anything to you because he's shy. But Wallahu la yastahi min al-haq. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not shy to speak the haq. But one other place where haya is mentioned in the Quran is when Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, because he was informed that Fir'aun had passed the judgment of capital punishment against him, and he had passed the judgment that they had decided now that they were going to kill him, he ran away and he went to Madian. And when he went to Madian, he saw two women. They were finding it difficult to get water and to feed their animals. So Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, he helped them. And thereafter, these women went back home. And then Shuaib alayhi salam said to one of his daughters that go back to that stranger, Musa alayhi salam, and tell him that my dad wants to repay you and pay you for your services, for the way that you helped me. So there it is mentioned that tamshi al-istihya, that when she came walking to Musa alayhi salam, she walked with haya. Now, one of the amazing things we have to understand about the Quran is that Quran has very little detail compared to the other books. You know, if we read the other books, for example, the other Asmani books, for example, the Bible, Torah, there's lots and lots of detail in their places and speech and what this person said, that person said, quotes and whatever. In the Quran, you don't find that. You don't find that type of detail. What you find is only that which is the most important, the lessons that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to learn from certain stories. So there's millions of things happen, probably thousands or hundreds of thousands of things happen in the life of Musa alayhi salam, but he mentions few of them, some of them he mentions over and over again. So here, when this daughter of Shuaib alayhi salam came to Musa alayhi salam, it could be that she came and there was no need to mention anything more than that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that she came walking with haya, that tamshi al-istihya. This is to show that the conduct of a believer should always be one of modesty, should always be one of haya. And especially for women, in the way that they dress, in the way that they talk, in the way that they walk, in every single aspect of their life, they should have a haya and they should be modest. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this. In one hadith it comes that one brother was admonishing his brother that you are too shy. You are too shy. You know, because of your shyness, you're going to miss out on so much. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was walking past and he heard this. So what did Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam say? That al-haya'u kullu khayr, da'hu, that leave him. You know, haya is something that all of it is good. You know, all of it is something which only will bring benefit. And Ibn Masud radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he used to say that when haya goes away, very soon iman will go away after that as well. So haya is something that we have to, and unfortunately we live in a time where we don't talk about haya enough. We don't talk about modesty. Modesty in dress, modesty in talking, modesty in the way that we conduct ourselves, modesty in the way that we use our eyes, our ears, our tongue, all of these type of things. Modesty is a very, very important quality. And if modesty leaves us, then what will happen is that khushu will also leave us as well. Because sadly we live in those times where, you know, nothing shocks us anymore, unfortunately. And that is the truth, you know. Those things which even a generation ago, when I was, for example, growing up, when I was in my teens, for example, something that you would never ever see on TV, even in the evening as well. You would say that these kind of things is only for those, you know, those kind of really seedy kind of bars or places or clubs where you will see this, but you will never see this even on your TV screen or anything like that. But nowadays, unfortunately, we live in a day and age where these things are not only on TV, but they are accessible to everybody. And people, families sometimes together, mother, sister, daughter, father, they are all sitting together watching this thing and nothing is affecting them. Because what happens is that fahsha and shamelessness is such a thing that a person becomes immune to it after a while. The first time you see something which is shameless, you think, you know, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, you are shocked by it. But after a while, when you see it again and again and again and again, what happens is that the shock factor goes away. It becomes absolutely normal for a person. And then not only that, but if somebody speaks against it, then people say, you know, why are you making an issue out of it for? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with this? And the standards, the high standards that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to a Muslim, they become so debased and they become so lowered that what happens is that a person is then ready to do anything. He's not affected by anything. And then after that, first of all, khushu goes away from the salah. That person offers salah, but he finds no connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thereafter, what happens? That slowly, slowly, a person starts having doubts about his iman, and finally, iman also goes away as well. So that's why Ibn Masud radiallahu ta'ala anhu used to say that when a person's haya goes away, then very soon after that, his iman will also go away as well.
Subhanallah, Jazakumullah khair. Beautiful answers, very thorough, and mashallah. We do have a few more questions. Now, alhamdulillah, Jazakumullah khair, Shaykh. From your answers, we've understood or we've kind of grasped so far what haya is, what modesty is. Now, we'd like to link that back to you know, individuals such as Maryam alayhi salam, or other individuals as well. How modest were they in their life, in their lifestyle? How did they used to speak? You know,
So if we study, for example, Surah Maryam, there is one lengthy ruku in Surah Maryam where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the story of Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha. And in that story, there are a few points, as I mentioned, that the details are not important as far as the Quran is concerned. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not talk about places and time and names and stuff like that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hints and points towards certain lessons that we as human beings and we as the followers of the Quran and followers of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam have to learn. So one thing which in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions is the reaction of Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha when she saw Jibreel alayhi salam. So Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha is mentioned in the Quran that وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ Maryam, that remember Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha إِذْ انْتَبَذَتْ مِنْ أَهْلِهَا مَكَانًا شَرْقِيًّا, when she withdrew from her family to a place facing the east. So for whatever reason, I mentioned different reasons why she had to, why she went into the east. But she went away from her family, went away from all of the people, and she went in secluded, and on her own she went towards the east. And Allah Ta'ala mentions فَاتَّخَذَتْ مِن دُونِهِمْ حِجَابًا, she placed a screen from them. And then فَأَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْهَا رُوحَنَا فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهَا بَشَرًا سَوِيًّا. Allah Ta'ala says that we sent towards her our messenger, our angel, and he appeared in front of her in the form of a human being, most handsome. So, at that time, the reaction of Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha is mentioned in the Quran. Now, first, one thing we have to remember is that when an angel comes in a human form, especially Jibreel alayhi salam, one cannot even imagine the beauty that that person is going to have and how beautiful that man or that person is going to look. That's why it comes about the story of Lut alayhi salam as well, that when the angels came to him, because those people used to practice homosexuality, they looked at the angels that came in human form and they were attracted to them, and they also wanted to commit zina with them as well. So one cannot even imagine that when an angel comes in a human form, how beautiful that human being is going to look. So when Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha, she is secluded, she is in this place, she is alone, and all of a sudden she sees this man. She doesn't know it is an angel. He has come in human form at the beginning. And usually what happens, and this is something for our sisters to learn, is that, unfortunately, we live in this day and age where sisters, lot of sisters, illa mashallah, when they interact with boys, they interact with men, they talk in such a way where they are kind of friendly and they kind of want to attract them towards themselves. And especially at this, if you look at this scenario where Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha is on her own, there is this beautiful man. I mean, the least that any other woman would probably have done is at least speak in a nice manner, maybe flirt a little bit, or maybe speak a little bit in a soft tone to maybe at least not offend this person, or to at least think that, maybe if not now, then later on there might be a chance that we might get together or something like this. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala quotes what Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha said as soon as she saw Jibreel alayhi salam. What did she say? She said, قالت إني أعوذ بالرحمن منك إن كنت تقيا. No hello, no assalamu alaikum, no how are you, no what are you doing here, nothing like that. The first thing she said is she worried about her modesty and she worried about her safety. She said that إني أعوذ بالرحمن, that I seek refuge from the Rahman. The Mufassirin have mentioned that the word Rahman is mentioned here to actually even teach this human being that she thought was a human being that even though you might have come with this whatever intention, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Rahman, seek forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you. So, inni a'udhu bil Rahman minka in kunta taqiya. That if you truly fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then I seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's refuge from you. So, this very first message, this is modesty. That no ifs, no buts, that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so strong that a woman does not want any man to come between herself and between her relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something which is very, very difficult to do. That's why it even comes as well that our scholars and our elders, they usually advise women that even, for example, if you are at home and a friend of your husband comes to meet him, at a time when you know that when he's supposed to know the husband is not at the house. So don't open the door and then start talking to him in a very friendly manner and start asking him how his day is, how his family is, and all of that, because that will just be an invitation for him to come again next time when the husband is out. So what does it say? That even if he asks, where is your husband? You say, you know what, he's your friend, you should know. Well, how am I supposed to know? You know he's not here, what are you here for? So even though it might come across as something which is rude, but it's to safeguard the modesty. And at such a time, even though that type of rudeness also is a sign of Iman. So first of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions her conduct. And just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the conduct of Yusuf alayhi salam and others who were tempted in different situations, that how they ran away from that situation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the modesty of Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha as well. And not only her conduct as far as this aspect is concerned, but also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions her conduct in speech. Because nowadays, unfortunately, especially, a lot of time when sisters and some sisters talk, and I really don't want to this program to come across as I'm just targeting sisters. It's for brothers and for sisters. The way brothers talk, the way sisters talk. The only reason I'm mentioning sisters a bit more is that the topic that I have been given is modesty in relation to Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha. But all of these commands and these weaknesses are found in men and in brothers, as well as they are found also in sisters as well. So it comes that when Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha was informed that you are going to have a baby, and also it was mentioned that this is something which is determined. There is no way out of this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already amran maqdiya. This is something which has already been decided. So what did Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha say? She said, قالت أن يكون لي غلام ولم يمسسني بشر. She said that how can I have a son? Now she is supposed to say that when I have not had relationship with a man, when I am not married, or when I have not committed this sin. But she doesn't even go that far. She only says, وَلَمْ يَمْسَسْنِي بَشَرٍ, when a man has not even touched me. This also shows the modesty of Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha, that those things which are secret, those things which are intimate and private, she did not even want to mention them on her tongue as well. But she just signaled towards them in such a way, وَلَمْ يَمْسَسْنِي بَشَرٍ, that no man has even touched me. So this also shows the modesty of speech that Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha had. And now compare that with the speech of us, our speech today, both brothers and sisters, that, you know, we use the F word sometimes, and these all kind of swear words. When we are talking, we are kind of using all kind of language, and unfortunately, so many of us will listen to music and all types of movies and programs where all this kind of vulgar language is being used. And what we don't understand is this is having an effect on us. You know, one of the things that my teachers used to say, that sare jahan mein sirf insaan hi bewakoof hai. He used to say that from the whole of the world, only human beings are stupid. And he used to give an example. He said that, look, every single other creature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they know the importance of their environment. They know that if I leave my environment, that means death for me. For example, if you ask a fish, or you tell a fish that come out of the sea and come on land, you'll say, no, I can't come, because that means death for me. If you tell an animal of the land that go into the sea, they will say, no, I can't go there. But unfortunately, we as human beings, and especially we as Muslims today, what happens is that we watch all of these things. We hear all of these things. We think about all of these things. But then we still think, you know what, our heart will not be affected. I will still have enjoyment in my salah. I will still have enjoyment in my practice. I will still be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't realize that everything we do, we think, we say, that has an effect on us. And when we are using this vulgar language and we are listening to this vulgar language on TV programs and all of these type of things, this is going to take the haya away from us. You know, we have to, whenever we watch something on TV, we have to ask ourselves that if somebody knocked on the door and they wanted to personally come in and do this, would we allow them to do this in front of our children? For example, if there were some semi-naked women and they knocked on the door, and we opened the door and they said, look, you know what, can we come into your house and in front of your children, we want to do a semi-naked dance and touching and whatever. You know? So we would not ever allow that. But through our TV screens, through our mobile phones. We are watching this. Sometimes as families, we are watching this. We are allowing this to come into our houses. All the barakah and ruhaniya and imaniyat of the house is going away. And sadly, we don't understand that this is the effect that it is having on us. So therefore, from the life of Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha, what is mentioned in the Quran, we find modesty in her conduct, we find modesty in her speech, we find modesty in her interaction with the other sex as well, and with the other gender as well. And this is something which is very, very important, that how women interact, because sadly, we live in a time where women, a lot of women, like men, for example, they look at their self-worth by the clothes that they have, by the friends that they have, and maybe by the a girlfriend that they might have. But lots of women, they think their self-worth is based on how many men are attracted towards her, how many men look at her, how many men want to talk to her. And that's the basis on which they think this is where my self-worth is. That my self-worth is based on that. If nobody's looking at me, and then so they take that beauty and this man is the standard. And if I don't have that, then I have no self-worth. But as Muslims, we have to remember that our self-worth comes because of our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our self-worth comes because of our iman. Iman is the greatest thing. You know how important in Iman. I mentioned this one last thing. I know, Moana, you might have some questions as well, more questions for me. But just the value of Iman can be understood from this one small example. That if we think of any bus service, or any kind of aeroplane service, or any train service in the world, if it has only one passenger, is that train service going to continue? Is that plane service going to continue? So say, for example, they've got a plane that goes from here to, I don't know, to Delhi. And every single day, there's only one passenger on that plane. How long is it going to be before they discontinue that service and they say, you know what, we can't do this, you can't take this direct flight, just go via somewhere else. But the value of Iman is so much in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it comes in the hadith that even if one person in this world is saying La ilaha illallah, and he's saying Allah, Allah, not even La ilaha illallah, only Allah, Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep the entire universe going as it is. The sun, the moon, the stars, the entire universe will continue as long as even there is one person saying not even only Allah, Allah, he's calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is the value that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us as Muslims. That is the value that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whether a man or a woman, their role model should be fellow people who have understood this and who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it should not be that because of how much I attract a man or because of any other reason that a person thinks that this is my self-worth. Our self-worth is how much we are, what status we have in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah ta'ala grant us understanding, inshallah.
Subhanallah, Jazakumullah khair. In the, I think, last 2 decades or 3 decades, we've seen a massive drop in modesty in our children, in our people. You've mentioned already briefly as to what affects modesty in people, like TV and etc. Would you be able to expand a little bit more on that, please, Shaykh?
Yeah, I mean, so as I just stated,
like we've got school and college. How can we, preserve our children, as being modest and keep that modesty level high up there?
Yeah, I mean, so especially, I mean, I think because this program is especially more focused towards sisters, but inshallah, I would like to speak about both, but inshallah, more emphasis on the sisters. So, I mean, sometimes what happens is that, there's that saying as well we hear that, the Americans, when they went to space and they wanted to write in space and they found that pen doesn't work. So then they came back and what did they do? They spent millions and millions of pounds to make a pen that works in space. And then it comes out when the Russians went, what did they do? They just used the pencil. And pencil worked in space, but they didn't know. So, sometimes when you have you think they are very, very complicated problems, but actually the solutions are very basic. They are very simple. And the first, solution that I would actually encourage is to become God conscious. The more conscious a person is of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more difficult it will be for them to commit any sins. And there's two types of sins, obviously. One is not to do what Allah has commanded us to do, and to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden us to do. So these are the two types of sins that a person can commit. If a person becomes God conscious meaning what? That they remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they make dua, and they do dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they offer the salah, they recite the Quran, then what you will find is that slowly that God consciousness will be such that they will not be able to commit this sin, whether it's sin of the eyes, sin of the tongue, or sin of the ears. And that's why many individuals will have experienced this as well, that when they are spiritually, they feel quite high, and they are doing their amal, and they are doing their ibadat, and all of these things every single day. What happens is that even if something kind of evil just appears in front of them, all of a sudden they'll feel that their heart is being torn apart, their soul is being torn apart. They will look away, and even if they were paid £1 million, they will not be able to look at that. Why? Because they have that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they are God conscious. But on the other hand, what happens is when that is not there, then even though you might have to risk your respect and risk everything, you will go purposely looking for that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden. So to do those amals every single day, that is the main thing that inshallah through that ruhaniya and that spirituality will increase within us, because of which to commit sins will be very, very difficult. The other advice that I usually give to sisters is to also understand that presence that sisters have. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, زُجِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ. So sometimes, for example, you are in a classroom, and if a sister comes in, and and there's lots of men there, and even though that sister might not be the most beautiful woman in the world, she will have an effect on the men which are there. And they will have something in their heart. Maybe they might look at each other, they might whatever. Is to that powerful attraction that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in the hearts of men. That is something that sisters should appreciate and should understand. And also at the same time, just like it comes in the Quran, that one of the du'as of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when he used to leave the house, he used to say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-azil aw uzal. That, oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't want to slip, and I don't want to be the cause of somebody else slipping as well. So this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. What the roles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to both men and women, they are completely different in Islam. One is the role of the outside of the house, one is the domestic house. And what women should not do is try and think that man is the standard. Because that is the problem today, that because of those people who don't believe in Allah, if you don't believe in Allah, then the highest standard is man. And then they think that, say, every woman must do what a man does. So if a man wears a t-shirt, woman must wear a t-shirt. If a man joins the army, woman must join the army. If a man leads the worship, a woman must also lead the worship as well. So these kind of things that come inside, and these kind of feelings come inside a person. So what a person must do is build that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and know that what commands Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed upon us, especially when it comes to eyes and dress. So when it comes to the eyes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions men first in the Quran. Because men usually, to safeguard their gazes, women find it much more easier, men find it much more difficult. But when it comes to the way that a person should dress, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in great detail about what a woman should cover, what she should not reveal, who she can reveal to, who she cannot reveal to. Because it comes in the hadith of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well, that some women, one of the signs of Qiyamah will be that there will be some women who will be clothed, but they will be naked. Because we have to understand that there are certain, when it comes to the clothes, there are certain rules that we have to follow. And some people nowadays, they think, you know what, what does clothes matter? As long as my heart is clean, my clothes are not important. But clothes are important. Why? It comes about Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu as well, that he once wore a very luxury new jubbah. He went into the masjid, he gave the khutbah, and after that he took it off. He said, I'm never going to wear it again. Why? Because when I was standing on the mimbar, I felt that I was better than the others because I was wearing this jubbah. So what we wear has a direct effect on us. One of our ustaz teachers used to say that if a fruit is rotten from the inside, on the outside, its effect will also become known as well. So this idea that no, my clothes are not proper or not according to Islam, but inside I am very well, this both for men and for women. Because men have to also wear modest clothes as well. Because sadly, unfortunately, for example, sometimes I go to play football with the boys and lads over here, and it saddens me that I see Muslim youth and they are wearing shorts which is not even covering their satar, and they are playing football. And I think to myself, what is the benefit of that? What are they going to get for that? If they could just wear something which was a few inches lower, they would not be committing a sin, and they could still play football exactly the same. So that is something that we have to do, become God conscious, understand the role of women, and especially learn about these role models. Because nowadays it's all about role models, and because we don't have Islamic role models and we don't know about Islamic personalities that have come in the past, then something has to fill that space. And now what's happening? It is those who are transgressors, those who are celebrities, those who are doing so many things which are shameless, they take that space of becoming our role models. So learning about the sisters of the past, learning about especially what is going to happen after we die and what is going to be, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions taqwa again and again in the Quran. What is taqwa? A fear of accountability of one's deeds. That a person has fear that, oh, how am I going to give account of this if I keep on committing this sin? And finally, one other thing that I will mention as well, the importance of tawbah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً, that those people who do something which is fahisha. Fahisha actually means something which is shameless. And then what is their condition? That they remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they don't do yusr, or they are not insistent on that particular sin, and they ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness of their sins, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives them. So whatever we have done in the past, sometimes when we learn about this, and especially when haya comes in a person, sometimes it is overbearing, and what happens is a person loses hope and thinks, what is the point? I have done all of these things in the past. I have worn these clothes. I have said these things. I've conducted myself in this way. Society already sees me in this way. So a person thinks, what's the point? But no, we should always remember that the doors of Tawbah are open for everybody. There was one, and I actually do this as well. A lot of times, sometimes people come in my office. I'm speaking from my office now, and they say, I've done this and the other. How can I ever be forgiven? And I ask them, have you killed anybody? So they said, no, I haven't killed anybody. So I said to them, if somebody who has killed 100 people can be forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why can you who has not even killed one person not be forgiven by Allah? So the doors of Tawbah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is forgiving. The doors of Tawbah are open for a person until a person leaves this world, or until the sun rises from the west. So until that time comes, there is always time for us. We have to better ourselves, thinking of ourselves as the greatest sinner. I must think that I am the greatest sinner. Everybody else is better than me. Everybody should think like this and try and bring these qualities, all of these characteristics of Nubuwwah into our life. And haya is a very, very important one of those characteristics.
Jazakumullah khair, Shaykh. Final question, inshallah. After that, we'll wrap you up. Now, thinking about the future, as you said, you're a head teacher of the maktab in your masjid, if I'm right. So I'm sure you've been thinking about this. Thinking about the future, what advice can we give to our parents or the young parents that are coming in now? How can they raise their children in a modest manner so they become people of modesty, inshallah?
Yeah, I think the first thing, as I mentioned, which is very, very important, because I see a lot of despondency amongst parents nowadays, especially despondency from those parents who are practicing somewhat. And when their children grow up, because sometimes usually what happens, and I've witnessed this a lot, and may Allah protect my children as well, is that what happens is that when a child is very young, parents have some kind of control over their children. So during that time, for example, a father and the son might be coming for the salah together, and the son is always accompanying the father, and the mother as well. She might be wearing the hijab, and the daughter is with her. She might be wearing or she might not be wearing the hijab. But what happens is that she is still behaving in such a way which is modest. But as we all know, as children get older in every society, but especially in this society in the West, the control decreases and the control finally diminishes. And children do whatever they want to do after that. So what is very, very important is during that age, when we can impress upon our children, we make the most of that age. Because already all the forces of battle are working on them anyway. When they go to school, the forces of battle are working on them. When they are sitting on their phone, they're sitting in front of the TV. Even, for example, when they are playing PlayStation, on PlayStation as well, even if it will be a football game or if it will be like Fortnite or whatever, but the dancing and the characters that they have on there, they are all kind of shameless characters. So what we need to do as far as our children are concerned is we need to start working on them from a very, very young age. Especially, for example, when it comes to girls wearing the hijab. The longer, sometimes people think, what, I'm not going to ask my daughter to wear the hijab now. I'm not going to encourage her to wear the hijab. I'll wait till she's 11, 12, 13. But if she's at the age of 11, 12, 13, she hasn't worn the hijab, then all of a sudden for her to adopt the hijab will be something very, very difficult. While if she's worn the hijab from a very young age, even though in other things she might become relaxed a little bit more, but because she's always worn the hijab, she's still going to continue wearing the hijab. So during that age, to ensure children go to the madrasa, they stay in good company, they learn as much as possible, and especially about these personalities that are role models for us. And also as well, at the same time, one thing that I always, especially when I speak to girls, I say to them, look, they don't know what the concept of modesty is. So I always say to them, look, think of one thing. Before you say something, before you do something, would you have said that? Would you have done that if I was there or if your father was there? And if they say, oh no, we wouldn't have said that, wouldn't have done that, then that is against modesty, don't do it. So these type of lessons from a very, very young age, we have to make sure that we are teaching our children and teaching our children about the wider world, the shortness of this life, and all of these lessons. Inshallah, if this seed of iman and taqwa is planted in their heart from a very, very young age, then inshallah what will happen is that will stay with them for the rest of their life. And what we have to really is don't damage our own self. Like they say in Urdu, apne pav pe kulhari mat maro. Don't hit the axe on your own foot, because what's going to happen is you are the one who is going to regret that later on. So in the same way, if we don't control what our children are watching, we let them watch whatever they want. Sometimes we are watching it with them. We know that there is behaya in it. We know at least, okay, they might be looking at school, at least at home, if we are not doing it, they will know that at least my family are against this, my deen is against this. Okay, in school, we have no choice. We have to learn this. So that's one of the things that I will really emphasize, that don't bring these kind of shaitani things in the house. Try and control them as much as possible. Sometimes we give children as young as 11, 12 a smartphone and have no supervision whatsoever. Now, that's not a very smart thing to do. To give them a phone that they can watch and they can see and they can do whatever they want. And finally, I would just like to say that speak to your children. Talk to your children. These things, 20, 30 years ago, these things were not prevalent. They were not everywhere. So what would happen is that even if our parents did not speak to them about it, our ustad did not speak to them about it, what would happen is that, inshallah, to a certain extent, we would be safeguarded. Even though, teenage years, we might go off the rails a little bit, but then what would happen is that, inshallah, we would come back. But nowadays, we live in a world where deliberately the iman of our children is being targeted. Deliberately, the modesty of our children is being targeted. If we don't talk to our children about these issues, for example, we know that in school when they go, most of the time they are going to be learning about atheism. And that's one thing. This is like a side issue, but one concern I have about madaris and maktab especially is that alhamdulillah we do emphasize a lot on the recitation of the Quran in Arabic, which is a very good thing, and that is something that obviously when they get older they will not have the opportunity to do. So quite rightly that is what we emphasize on. But also at the same time, our makatib should place a lot of emphasis in talking about and making a syllabus which challenges the misconceptions and the misunderstandings that children get from school. So especially when it comes to these type of things about atheism, now especially transgender and homosexuality, all of these things are being taught in school as well. So we have to talk about the Islamic perspective of all of what is the Islamic stance on all of those issues. Also as well, for example, pornography and these type of things are prevalent. A girl, she will most probably have a smartphone, so to go onto certain websites and speak to certain people, all of these things are accessible and available. We cannot control our children anymore. But if we talk about the dangers and work on the iman from a very, very young age, then inshallah what will happen, inshallah, and also making dua as well, because dua, at the end of the day, it is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who can protect a person. وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ مَا زَكَى مِنْكُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ أَبَدًا. Allah ta'ala mentions in the Quran that if it wasn't for the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, none of you would ever be able to purify yourself from the sins and from doing those things which are forbidden by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are just some of the things that we can do, but continuously making effort. Don't stop making effort. Don't give up. Inshallah, you do that, you make dua and leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect our children and also make them a means for guidance for others as well, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair. Shaykh, thank you very much for joining us tonight and blessing us with your knowledge on this aspect. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, we hope you will join us again in the near future, inshallah. And we thank Allah for giving us this opportunity to get together, even if it's virtual, and speak about the greats such as Maryam alayhi salam. And inshallah, there will be more further programs on this channel, Meme Islamic TV. So do look out for it on Facebook and YouTube. And we shall see you in the next program. And a special thank you to our guest speaker tonight. Inshallah, we hope to see you again very soon. Jazakumullah khair.
On behalf of all the viewers and everybody, if I can say Jazakallah to you as well. MashaAllah, you've done an excellent job of hosting. So I sometimes talk too much, so I didn't give you much of a chance to speak.
No.
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah for giving your time as well, and I'm sure and giving me the opportunity. And MashaAllah, may Allah Ta'ala accept all our efforts from us.
Ameen, ameen, ameen. And on this note, inshallah, we will finish. Jazakumullah khair, everyone that has watched. And we will see you next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.